Hello, marvelous mathematicians. Welcome to Lesson 31, Session 1. We are on page 689. Okay, we are starting a new lesson and where we are going to explore classifying quadrilaterals. Now, classifying, notice it has the word classify in it. Say classifying. This is classify means to compare shapes. So we're going to compare and put in groups. So you have been doing classifying a lot, especially since you were in kindergarten. You may not have known you were classifying, but you were. You were comparing the shapes or comparing the items and put them into groups. Now, we've also talked about quadrilaterals. Remember, quadrilaterals has the word quad. What does quad mean? Quad means four. So today we are going to explore classifying quadrilaterals. We're going to look at four-sided shapes and compare them and put them in groups. Previously, you compared shapes and put them into groups. See, I told you you had been classifying because we've done that before. In this lesson, you will learn how to group quadrilaterals. So we're going to look at shapes that just have four sides. Use what you know to try to solve the problem below. A rhombus is one kind of quadrilateral. Okay, rhombus. We're going to learn what a rhombus is. If you don't remember, we're going to go over it. A rhombus is one kind of quadrilateral. That means it is a shape that has four sides. A rectangle is another kind of quadrilateral. Notice the word quad there. So a rectangle is another shape that has four sides. How are a rhombus and a rectangle the same? How are they different? Okay, now to make sure we understand this, let's look at the pictures. Our pictures show us that this is a rhombus. Say rhombus. And this is a rectangle. Say rectangle. Now they want us to find out how are a rhombus and a rectangle the same and how are they different. So when we come up with an answer, we're going to have to be able to talk about what is the same between these two shapes and what is different. If you can, pause the video, write down here in the try it. I want you to tell me everything that is the same and everything that is different. When you've written your ideas down, come back to the video. Okay, what did you notice that was the same? Well, they're quadrilaterals, which means they all have four sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a rectangle has 1, 2, 3, 4. What else do you notice? There are four angles. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one has 1, 2, 3, 4. Anything else that you notice that's the same between these? Okay, what did you find that's different? What's different between these two? What does the rectangle have that the rhombus does not? The rectangle has four, oops, I've got to write rectangle. So our rectangle, it has four right angles. Remember, we've talked about right angles. Right angles are angles that look like corners. So there's a right angle, there's a right angle. It's got four right angles. What else do you notice about the rectangle? Well, the rectangle has the opposite sides are the same length. The opposite sides are the same length. I'm wondering, does that work for the rhombus too? Are the opposite sides the same length? They are. I actually think this is a way that they are the same. So I'm going to move that over here because I noticed it happened for the rectangle. And when I thought about it, I'm like, oh, That works for the rhombus too. Notice that the opposite sides, this side is the same as this side. This side is the same as this side. And we notice that with the rectangle too. This side is the same as this side. And the bottom is the same as the top. So the opposite sides are the same length. I'm going to use that idea, but I'm going to move it over here to the same side because that makes them the same. Okay, anything else that you notice makes the rectangle different? It has two sets of different lengths. Do you notice that our rectangle, our bottom and top line are longer and our two side lengths are shorter? What do we notice about the rhombus? All four sides are the same. So this was our rectangle. What do we notice about our rhombus that makes it different? Our rhombus has 4 equal sides. What else do you notice about our rhombus? There are no right angles. Now you might have some other ideas, and that's okay. I may not have everything here, but there is a new thing that we might be talking about, and it's some of our vocabulary for this lesson. We are going to talk about parallel lines. Now, to talk about parallel lines, I'm going to show you with toothpicks. Okay, parallel lines are when you have two lines that will never, ever, ever touch. So notice how if this top toothpick were to go on forever and ever and ever, and this bottom toothpick went on forever and ever and ever, they would never, ever touch. Now, if this bottom toothpick did this, they would eventually touch, because notice that this one eventually goes this way and this one goes this way. So these are not parallel, because notice how they at some point will touch if they were to go on forever. So the cool thing about parallel lines is they will never ever touch. Now I can actually turn them this way. And if this bottom toothpick goes forever and this top toothpick goes forever, they will never ever touch. That means they are parallel. Say parallel. Very good. Now what we can do is we can actually make a rectangle. What do you notice about our sides? Actually, I've made a square, right? And a square is a rectangle. Notice that if I take away these two, I have parallel lines. If I put those back and I take away the top and the bottom, what do you notice? I have another set of parallel lines. Let's look at a rhombus. If I have a rhombus, notice no right angles. Let's look at our opposite sides. If I take the opposite sides away, my top and bottom, they are still parallel. If those lines go on forever and ever, they will never touch. If I put my sides back and I take off my top and bottom, notice that I'm left with parallel lines. They will never ever touch. If they continue going forever, they'll never touch. Excuse me. So now let's go back and look at what our picture shows us. Do you see some parallel lines here? We do. Notice that the rhombus has parallel lines at the top and bottom. It also has parallel lines on the sides. What about our rectangle? Our top and bottom are parallel lines, and our sides are parallel lines. So that is something that is the same between these two. So I'm going to add another piece here. They have two sets of parallel lines. Now, that leads us to our next vocabulary word, parallelogram. Say parallelogram. You might have to practice that one a couple of times. Parallelogram. A parallelogram is when you have two sets of parallel lines. So a parallelogram is when the top and the bottom are the same, they're parallel, and our two sides are parallel. Oops, I should have drawn those extra pieces. Can you see it? These are parallelograms. So we're going to read about that on the back. Let's go ahead and turn to page 690. Okay, let's look back. How are the rhombus and the rectangle alike? How are they different? We actually already did that over here. So if you don't know, come back and take a look at our paper. Okay, looking ahead. A quadrilateral is a shape with 4 sides and 4 angles. The shapes to the right are quadrilaterals. You can name a quadrilateral based on its attributes. There's a new word. Attributes. An attribute is a way to describe a shape. So we looked at the attributes of a rhombus and a rectangle on the other side. These are the attributes. One attribute is they have 4 sides. Another attribute is they have 4 angles. A third attribute is they have 2 sets of parallel lines. These are attributes. It is a way to describe the shapes. So let's read this again and make sure we understand what's going on. A quadrilateral is a shape with 4 sides and 4 angles. Look at all of our quadrilaterals. Do they look the same? No, they've got different lengths and they're going different directions, but what do they all have in common? What are the attributes they have in common? They all have 4 sides and they all have 4 angles, right? All 4 angles. You can double check, count them all. The shapes to the right are quadrilaterals. You can name a quadrilateral based on its attributes. An attribute is a way to describe a shape. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram. There's that word again, parallelogram. If it has the attributes, both pairs of opposite sides are the same length and opposite sides are parallel. Okay, so I will show you a few that are parallelograms to help you understand. Sides are parallel if they are always the same distance apart. Remember I showed you with the toothpicks. The 2 lines are always the same distance apart. This distance here is the same as the distance here. That's because they will never ever touch. Okay, so if we know a parallelogram have both pairs of opposite sides are the same length and the opposite sides are parallel. So let's look at this. We need to circle the parallelograms. So first of all, are opposite sides the same length? Is this the same as this? Yes. Is this the same as this? Yes. Are the opposite sides parallel? No, look at that, they touch. Not parallelogram. How about this one? Are the opposite sides the same length? Yes. These opposite sides the same length? Yes. Are the opposite sides parallel? So let's look. If those keep going forever and ever, and this one keeps going forever and ever, do they ever touch? No, they don't touch. These are this is a parallelogram. Okay, let's look at this one. Are our opposite sides the same length? Yep. Top and bottom the same length? Yep. Are our opposite sides parallel if I lay my lines down? Are those parallel, meaning they'll never ever touch? Parallel. And then these are parallel. They're never ever going to touch. So yes, this is a parallelogram. Okay, let's look at our last one. Are the opposite sides the same length? Yes. Are the top and bottom the same length? No, look at that bottom. It's a lot longer than the top. And just so I can show you about the opposite sides are parallel, what happens with our opposite sides here? What happens if I lay my toothpick and I lay my oh, look at that, they're gonna touch. These sides are not parallel, so this is not a parallelogram. Okay, so let's look at B. A quadrilateral is a rectangle if it has 4 right angles. A rectangle also has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel and the same length. Okay, so a quadrilateral, gotta make sure I read this carefully. Quadrilateral is a rectangle if it has 4 right angles. Okay, remember right angles look like corners. A rectangle also has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel and the same length. So there's 2 rules it has to follow in order to be a rectangle. So we're going to look at those two rules and see which ones of these are rectangles. Okay, so first one, does it have 4 right angles? I don't have my little paper, but remember, oh yeah, here we go. It looks like a corner, right? See how it looks like a corner? So yes, it's got 4 right angles. A rectangle also has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel and the same length. Are my sides parallel? Yes. Are they the same length? Yes. Are top and bottom parallel? Remember, we can always check with toothpicks. Yep, they're the same length, or they're parallel. They'll never ever touch. And they are the same length. This is a quadrilateral. Okay, let's look at this shape. Does this side have 4 right angles? Oh, let me get my paper back. Does it make a corner? No, it does not make a corner. So this is not a quadrilateral. How about this shape? What does that look like? You're right, it looks like a square. Does it have 4 right angles? I can test it with my paper. Yep, it has 4 corners. Now, the opposite sides are parallel and the same length. Is the top and the bottom parallel? Are they parallel? Yes. Are they the same length? Yep. How about the 2 sides? Are they parallel? Yes. Are they the same length? Yes. So this square is also a rectangle. Okay, let's look at our 4th shape. Rectangle, if it has 4 angles. Do we have 4 right angles? I've got 1, got 2. Those aren't right angles. Look, see, I can't make a corner. Okay, so this is not a quadrilateral. Okay, in C. A quadrilateral is a rhombus if it has 4 sides that are all the same length. Okay, so a rhombus has to have 4 sides that are the same length. Okay, so that's the rule. All 4 sides have to be the same. A rhombus also has 2 pairs of parallel lines. Okay, so 2 pairs of parallel lines. So 2 rules it has to follow to be a rhombus. Okay, so let's look at our first shape here. Are all 4 sides the same length? Nope. In fact, if I had my ruler, I would notice that it does not. Because notice this one is it's about 1.5 centimeters. And this one is less than a centimeter. So this is not a rhombus. How about this shape? Well, that one's 1.5 and that one's 1.5. Okay. How about the side here? Oh, it's a little less than 1. Remember, all 4 sides have to be the same length. This is not a rhombus. How about this one? Is that a rhombus? Well, if I take a look at that's about a little over 1/2 centimeter, a little over 1/2 centimeter. And yes, all 4 sides are the same length. Do they have 2 pairs of parallel lines? You could always use your toothpicks. Parallel. And then those are parallel. They'll never ever touch. So yes, this is a rhombus. How about our square? Is that a rhombus? Are all 4 sides the same length? Yes, they are. If we measured them, we could tell. And do we have 2 sets of parallel lines? Those are parallel. And those are parallel. So yes, we do have a rhombus. Okay, so we had 2 shapes that were a rhombus and 2 shapes that were not. Okay, our reflect. List 3 attributes a quadrilateral could have. What are some attributes? Remember, attributes are the way to describe a shape. What are things that we could use to describe a shape? Specifically, how would we describe a quadrilateral? What does it need to have? Well, it has to have 4 sides. What else does it need to have? It has to have 4 angles. And what are some other things that quadrilaterals might have? They might have parallel lines. What else might they have? They might have all sides the same. Might be the same length. we could also say that they might have all right angles. There's a lot we could put here, but they asked for 3, so these are at least 3 that they could do. Okay, that is the end of session 1. Now it is your turn to go ahead and go to page 691 and begin working on the prepare for classifying quadrilaterals on your own. Remember, fill out both sides, and when you're done, come back and watch video number 2.